in Portland, I own NEMO Design with a couple other guys, and we have a 20,000 square foot building, and Dave Seoane rents the basement. So he's part of our folklore. And when people come through the shop and do their factory tour of NEMO, they're like, yeah, and there's this weird guy that lives in the basement. The editors come in, you know, hey, we're gonna do a story about NEMO, and Dave steals the show. It's always about Dave. So that's cool. We like it that way.
Well, I guess I could, the truth is, can I say anything about the fire marshals? Or because technically this space, which I don't live here because it's, you know, you're not supposed to live here, but I do get tired and I do have to take naps here, right? So, you know, the couch is not a good place to really concentrate and focus. So this is why I built the mobile sleeping device that you can reel around anywhere in the house. And it has a complete little surround sound, bed, the bare basics. I have this. This is my tactic in case anybody breaks in. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna shoot them? I don't have a gun, so you take this and you just go. That would scare the shit out of you, right? If you walked into a dark warehouse trying to rob something, you'd run. I don't know. That's my theory. It's so good. That guy's out, so. But the best room is this one right here. Yeah. Every room should have a soundproof room.
Every house?
Every house. Every warehouse. And this belongs to a friend of mine, Jason Brown, who is a, as you can see his setup, he's very experimental. Yeah, it's got 2 layers of drywall. It's got a like a 6-inch air pocket that's insulated, and then it's got another 2x4 wall with another 2 layers of sheetrock all the way around it. So it's pretty soundproof. Like you can hear like the lows, you can hear the kick drum, but you can't hear any of the highs at all, and everything else is muted out.
That's awesome.
So it works out really well. So. She was doing some roller derby. Cool. I have this, but I have no affiliation to it. Squaw Valley yard sale for 98 cents. Yeah, I remember like as a little kid seeing this at a skate shop. Like, wow, you just put those on your skateboard and you can go down the snow? That's incredible. There's like this old stuff, but I didn't learn on this. I learned on a Burton backhill, but I do definitely share my respect for Sherman. He's a good man.
Dave Seoane, met him 86. Donner Ski Ranch, first contest ever entered. I actually met Chris Roach that day too, and Monty Roach, Tucker Francis. Seoane's someone I've always kind of related to pretty well. Just we've always been curious about creating stuff, and Dave was a bit of a scavenger in a younger age. Just he's always the guy who slept on someone's deck out on the curb, and he was always someone that, you know, always came in surprised with something new.
I have the original Squaw Valley gas station sign that I am going to sell to somebody that lives in Squaw Valley for $60,000. Exhibit A. This is the fun one. You got it all like a... Can I interest you in an SR? K100? Scrapyard.
It's toys. Which one did you shoot though?
I shot probably this SR. This is probably the one I used the most. This was the workhorse. That thing's been all over the world. What's that?
Is that my one?
No.
You know, my relationship with Dave has been like, he's like that high school buddy you're friends with forever. Like I say, he figures out how to weld, figures out how to cut movies, how to film, how to snowboard. He just kind of has that. He always wants to keep learning. I think that's why I like hanging out with him and respect being around him. Hey, he gets it done, you know? It's like, he's got the best program. Dave's on the best program, I'm telling you.
See this right here though? This is my future home. This is what I'm working towards right here.
This is the proper mobile home?
This is a proper mobile home. This will be a legal mobile home. It's a 1949 Silver Street Clipper that's going to be put back to original form.
Are you gonna chrome it and everything?
Well, like you can see, I polished an area here.
Oh.
So it is possible to get some sheen out of it. Oh, this is the English wheel. This is for pretty much like bending aluminum and rolling. And so, I mean, it's what they made cars, and that's what they made airplanes out of back in the day. Probably still to this day a lot of prototype parts, but it has been taken into the motorcycle industry and it's been popularized. And then this is the wood room here, which is building a lot of like tabletops and furniture and prototypes. So it's good to like come up with ideas and concepts, and then you can come in here and build it out of wood. And then I do a lot of welding as well out there, so I can put pieces together and build it up and fab up whatever comes to mind. So it's nice. It's a complete luxury to have all this at my fingertips. So.
Seoane and Jamie Lynn were probably the two snowboarders that started marketing their image as artists. And Jamie was the painter and Seoane was the welder. And it's good stuff. It makes good stuff. Right. You know, it's stuff within reason. It's not a non-purpose art. You know, you made a chair, you need to sit down somewhere, right?
I moved to Tahoe in probably 87. In Tahoe area, I mean, there was like Terry Kidwell and Sean Palmer and Keith Kimmel, like those guys were, and Jim Zellers and Tom Bird, those guys were all kind of established, and it was like Chris Roach and Palmer, those guys are the ones that started getting sponsored by Sims, and they're the first real like force of, you know, the start of getting product, and right before like this is like right after probably the second or third World Cup. But I think it was probably in 88 or 89 that the Cal Series, they had a event that went all around California, amateur and pro snowboard contest, and that's where Chris Roach and Tucker and everybody was, we'd all tour around that. And so there was that kind of first generation, and then I feel like I'm kind of on the second generation with Chris Roach and Tucker Franson. Steve Graham and Damian Sanders came up to Tahoe a little bit later, so they were kind of, like third wave, I should say. And I didn't know Steve before Look, and so we hooked up and met through Look Snowboards through Bert Lamar.
That was pretty much my partner in crime for traveling with and living with, and you know, because we were both on Look and filming together too, and we just had so much fun. You know, back then, probably because our equipment sucked so bad. You know, we rode for Look, and there was no real design there for years. we were both screwed, but we would make the most of it.
Dave's a great guy, super nice. And we actually lived together. So yeah, when Steve Graham and Dave and I all started riding together, we got this place in Donner, and 3 or 4 bedroom, and they moved in with me, and it was just a blast. So 3 pro snowboarders living together, and my wife Brandy at the time, and we'd wake up, go to Squaw, meet the Rat Pack, ride all day, and then back to our house. And then we kind of lived in the mountainous area, so we were always just up on the hill building jumps, building rail slides. It was just nonstop snowboarding from the time we woke up to the time we went to sleep.
And right at that time is when snowboarding started to get more recognized. And there was a French guy at one of the trade shows, like we'd go there and we're like, these French guys are in suits, and we're like, oh shit, this is serious stuff. These guys are in suits. These guys are all biz. And the guy that was running Look, his name was Jacques Gris, this French gentleman, and we went out that night and had the funnest time ever. He was like the loosest guy I've ever met, and he was hilarious. And after that, it was just like, okay, no problem. I could easily work with these guys.
Waking up, going to work, and complaining about work all day. If you're complaining about it so much, then why are you there? And you should just be out doing what you want to do, no matter what you're doing, as long as you're having a good time. That's all that counts.
He's the one guy that really never competed. He made a pretty new career, because back then everyone competed to be sponsored, and Seoane he went straight into filming pretty much. He did a few contests, but he got sponsored for being in Fall Lines Films.
Like usually the way it works is like Snowboarder Magazine would sponsor Snowboarders in Exile. My job was to go and cover it and make stills and write a story about whatever it was that we were doing. And so I'd sleep on Jerry's couch, countless nights. And that's where I met Dave. So Seoane, it's funny, I lose track of it actually. I've been on some of my best road trips with Seoane. Juneau, Alaska, we've been to New Zealand. So I'm stoked that we still got a good relationship.
Yeah, we did actually go to the contest, but it was never, we didn't have any pressure that we had to do good in the contest. It was more just like a great way to, see your buddies and have a few hundred cases of beer and have a good time.
Yes.
What's the most important thing to you right now?
Trying to find a 59 dying station wagon.
And food.
I'm not worried about food. Once I get the wagon, I'll be able to drive anywhere in the world and eat. I just need to get there.
Yeah, well, Seoane's, like I said, he's a bit of a scavenger. I mean, I've been in Japan with him and seen him pull out an ice cream upside down on an ashtray and eat it for 10 bucks. You know, it's not because he wanted to, but mostly because he was in Japan and didn't have 10 bucks. You know.
The old ice cream story. Well, what happened was like Steve Graham and I were in Japan. I think I had probably $23 to my name. I think Steve had he might have had like $100. And I don't know, I just walked by the table and they were making all these big bets and like who would eat this ice cream cone with cigarette butts and hair and gum on it. It was Brushy. Jeff Brushy was eating this ice cream. We're all sitting around this table and this has this huge Japanese ashtray in there with just nothing but cigarette butts and gum and just all this crap. And for some reason, Brushy grabs the ice cream. Yeah, Dave, remember this one? We got the money up to like $80 or $100, and we're gonna get 20 bucks from Jacoby, even from him, and getting 20 bucks from him was tight. When Dave walks up and goes, "What? How much for that?" Just grabs it and just boom, takes a huge bite, and he was pretty much supposed to eat, you know, pretty much anything that was on that ice cream. Not the whole thing, but spit out the cigarette butts. And I walked by it, and they're like, yeah, they weren't not sure who's gonna do it. And so I was like, wait, 120 bucks to eat that right now? And they're like, yeah. And I just grabbed the thing and I ate it, and I spit out the cigarette butts, but I ate the cigarettes. There was probably like 3 or 4 cigarettes that I ate. And that's probably the sickest I've ever been in my life. For 3 days, I was completely dehydrated. I couldn't take on any food or water. I shit the bed like 4 times. Don't eat tobacco, it's the worst thing for you ever. It was like the hardest 120 bucks I've ever made in my life. He was sick for 4 days, but he got his electronic item he wanted the 80 bucks for, you know, and was sick the whole damn trip. No, with that money I bought beer out of the vending machine. Sometimes after that, he got so curious about the filming part, he got involved on the other side of the camera, and that's what he does now.
I taught Seoane how to shoot film, and then he went off to make his own films after a while.
I think I came into the picture doing a little bit on like critical condition, like doing the helmet cam stuff. The only reason why the helmet cam came into play is because of the Blizzard of Oz. Like those guys were skiing with it, and the only reason I got chose to wear the helmet camera is because I was the closest to the ground and I had the fattest neck to support the thing. Because the thing probably weighed like, I think it had to weigh like 15, 20 pounds. It had a camera, and then they were putting on lead pieces to counterbalance. So it was like a pretty cumbersome contraption. Yeah, if you're short and have a fat neck, you're gonna get a helmet cam thrown on you. The other reason I got thrown onto a helmet cam is because, you know, I can keep up with the other snowboarders. There was a trip to go to Valle Nevado, Chile with Palmer and Roach, and I wanted to go to snowboard. And there was no room to go as a snowboarder, but Jerry had offered me a chance if I wanted to go to shoot second camera angle or third camera angle, and it wasn't even a hesitation. I just, you know, got a camera and we did a little film test and it worked out. And I'd always had an interest in still photography, so I can adapt to the film plane.
Well, Seoane's such an art fag, and I don't think he even knew what an art fag he was early on. I think now he would totally embrace that title. So I think, you know, I think he saw a great opportunity for him to get involved on a creative level, and I think Jerry and Artie needed it. You know, he had a really fun idea, you know, let's go on a road trip.
That's when I talked Jerry and Artie into letting me like do a couple little side projects with them, and that's when like I came up with the concept and directed Roadkill and 8 Tracks and RPM, those 3 films, which we try to do same season releases. So we'd go out the first like November, December, January, and try to release it in February, and we did that for 3 years in a row. I mean, snowboarding was like the progression of it was going pretty quick, and when we first did Roadkill, at the end of, what was that, I think like Riders of the Storm, at the end of that everybody started, you know, buttering tricks and nose presses and all that funky stuff, but
this was a way to, instead of waiting a whole other year to capture this and show this, was to be like, okay, this is what's going on now. So here you go.
Oh yeah, Roadkill and RPM. I think Roadkill was the first one, and that was our hardcore movie. You know, that was first kind of half-hour movie, just quick. But they put together a super sick lineup right when freestyle was really busting out. You know, when this gear right here was the stuff to be. You know, blind jeans, what's up, and you know, Brushy right here was killing it. You know, and that's why. However long, was it been 15 years later, I'm on the internet looking to buy a Brushy board because of those videos in those days. Reminded us of the time when we were first getting into it and first really pushing to try to get better and emulate our idols, you know.
Roadkill was with Terje HAAKONSEN and John Cardiel was in it, Brian Iguchi, Graham Palmer, Jamie Lynn was in it, CIRCE was in it, a couple others that I can't think off the top of my head, but that was, we started off in Tahoe, and then, you know, Palmer, we took a limousine, and then Palmer came with us with his limousine, because he has a whole garage full of limousines for some reason. And that was like in a matter of like a month and a half, and that was a brutal month and a half. And Bud Fawcett was, we were driving in Colorado, but we were on one of the main interstates, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and one of the belts blew off the car, and so Bud was driving. So luckily Bud, I don't know how he did it, but got us there safely. We found a gas station, and I'm trying to they were just getting ready to close, but I found a replacement belt, and in the car, and I'm trying to I mean, it's cold. It's like 11 o'clock in the middle of Colorado at night, and then those guys are all just hanging out, partying in the limousine, and I'm out there, you know, getting my hands dirty and trying to fix this belt, and I opened the door to try to get something, and the Gooch, I remember Brian Iguchi, he's like, Dave, can you shut the door? It's cold out there. And I was like, you fucking asshole. And I just totally snapped at him and yelled at him so hard. I was so pissed. And then after they all came out of the car and they were quiet and they're like, we're sorry, do you need a hand with anything? And I was like, thanks, you guys. So that was one of the just many little highlights.
I really remember Jamie and Palmer jumping the Donner Cliffs, that little section in Roadkill. I remember watching Palmer backside 360 that Donner Cliff, thinking that maybe was one of the gnarliest things I'd ever seen. And he had that clown hairdo.
Yeah, it was Jamie Lynn and CIRCE actually came down from Washington to do a segment in Tahoe. That's when we went out into the backcountry in Donner Summit and just built the jump. He was just one of the guys that we wanted to work with. And I think Jerry Nardi had enough credibility where people, you know, they were approached by people that people wanted to work with them. So it was kind of nice that, you know, they had established themselves and people were coming to them, and, you know, we were already kind of grandfathered in there.
And I just remember hiking up in, you know, Donner Pass and Sugar Bowl and the Donner Ski Ranch. And the days we rode after that were the days that were filmed, you know, that we got to film all the shots for Roadkill. Because it had just snowed 10 feet, you know. And then Tahoe is so concentrated with different areas, you could just go from one area to the next and just pick and with those guys' you know, kind of pass to access that stuff, it allowed us to get up into some really, really good snow, early ups in KT22 at Squaw Valley, you know, no one does that.
While I was making this films, Roadkill and HAAKONSEN and RPM, I was still working with Rossignol at the time. So I was just going to work in film, and then Rossignol offered me a position to design and build boards and still keep doing what I was doing, so I couldn't say no to it. So I was working with Rossignol, helping them design boards and helping to promote Rossignol, and a little bit of film segments, but it was kind of dying off, and that's when I just got into more of the film making aspect of it. And the reason why I got in the film aspect of it is just because I had a really good, you know, relationship with most of the riders. So it was pretty seamless.
I think he jumped ship just a year or two early from the pro snowboarder to filming, but I think he was so interested in the filming part, he just dove into that pretty quick, and it's been good for the sport. I mean, he's brought the athlete side of the eye more on the other side of the camera to capture, you know, the sport a little better from the rider's point of view. I think Fall Line was working with him for so long, he learned a lot from him.
Yeah, let's get these girls to start working here. It's getting late here.
I always knew of him from the videos, like watching Snowboarders in Exile and watching him fly off huge cliffs in Jackson Hole. But definitely part of different circles of people. You know, he wasn't part of the Burton world in his pro snowboarding scene at all. So he was part of a Tahoe kind of scene. So the paths really didn't cross it, you know, for me, until he got behind the camera. Burton hired him to kind of come on and shoot, so became friends there, and he's got a really cool way about him, a really quirky style and really different than the way I shoot photos. So I kind of just watched him do his deal, and I'm like, wow, I can learn a lot from his approach and how he interacts with the riders and things. So full immersion, like just party scene, like he's in there, or a shred scene, he's in there. Like he's such a sick rider, and his has evolved quite a bit as well. Like he was just super loose and part of the scene and would just capture it better than anyone else. Like he made Hawkins movies, Subject HAAKONSEN. He's just shredding, you know, probably just right in there with Terry, living the lifestyle and just getting it all on film. So nothing that you can really learn. I think you just have to be that person, you know, be part of it and be a good friend first and then get the relationships on the camera.
I'm not sure exactly how we met. I know it was a long, long time ago. We were probably either around Mount Hood or something like that. But all I remember is watching Subject HAAKONSEN and just thought that was the best movie ever. You know what I mean? I loved the riding. I loved the way it was put together and the music, and it had a vibe to it, and I liked that.
That came through. I've been friends with Richard Woolcott and been friends with Terry at this time. So we'd kind of like thrown the idea around to do it. And so Richard Woolcott, Terry and I, we just sat down and talked about it to see how it would work out. And we're like, yeah, it totally makes sense. And Terry was totally into it. Like Volcom put up the dough for it and produced it. It was good because this was kind of before Terry would be so like closed off to everybody, when he was still kind of user friendly for the public. And so, but he was into it, and so that was like, we definitely had to take advantage of that. And that was a lot of fun too. That was a lot of traveling, and you know, Terry is like, he's funny because once you get him out there and turn the camera on, you can't really stop him.
So I had his main movie that was called Subject HAAKONSEN. I've probably seen it, I don't know, like 2,000 times. So yeah, I can't watch it anymore because it's a VHS and it's just too old now. So. Yeah, I liked a lot of parts. I remember I really liked the part when him and Daniel Frank were riding the half-pipe. I think it was at Mount Hood, and they had a part together, and that's one of my favorite parts. Other than that, like there's this part where he's helling, he's doing this huge backflip. Like the whole movie just has so much variety. It's way more work to film a whole movie than just to film a part. You have to be a pretty complete rider to be able to do that. And you know, at the time when his movie came out, it was for sure the best movie, you know, ever made as far as snowboarding. So trick-wise and you know, just how technical he was riding. Not just like technical as far as doing tricks, but just the way he was riding the terrain. Yeah.
Yeah, and not just through the movie. I think just his, you know, general popularity. It seems like he's more of an icon in the U.S. and Japan than he was in Europe. I don't know if that's because he spent so much time over here in Europe, because even like in Norway, it's different now, but back then in Norway, when you'd walk around with him, he wasn't such a recognized guy. He was still like low key. We tried to get into some club, and he had no pool to get us in there. And but here in the U.S., people recognize him a lot more. But that's changed now. He's like a big name in his hometown, or in Oslo. What was after that? Then I did another film with Terry, the HAAKONSEN FAKTOR. You know, Terry is riding and kind of developed more into like bigger free riding, so we were just trying to capture that. So we But we got skunked on so many trips, and then it was at the end of the season. We didn't really have much in the can, and we're like, okay, we got to go to New Zealand, so we'll go there for a couple weeks and see what we can get. And then we were there for 6 weeks, and there was times when it was like Iker Fernandez, Mickey Albin, the Gooch, Terrier. Like we were there for like the 4th weekend, and they were like, it's just not happening. Like we want to go home. And I was just like, I almost broke down in tears. I was like, you guys can't leave. Like, we're so close. Like, we have a helicopter. Like, I had to convince those guys to stay. Because, I mean, we were all completely burnt out on being in, you know, one place, you know, snowboarding in the summertime. And so they stuck it out, and we ended up, you know, the weather had finally cleared, and we got a good shot, so it worked out. So it was worth putting in the extra 2 weeks for. But it's hard, you know, traveling and being in one spot and for that long.
Man, I thought you said no one was gonna be here.
That's that redheaded snowboard kid.
Isn't there snow somewhere?
Yeah, there's some freshies on the super jib in Tahoe, bro.
Come on, I got an idea.
Hey, what's up,
Sean?
guys? Hey. Tomato, how are ya?
How you doing? And I was about 16, and we paired up to do a movie, the White Album, and it was awesome. And it was just funny because he's just this kind of like, I don't know how to describe his personality. You know, it's one of a kind. But it's awesome because we'd be hanging out and shooting the movie, and I totally would forget the fact that he just shreds on his own. I mean, he's a really talented snowboarder, especially back in the day. He had stories, but they're mostly like, oh, this is when Farmer like jumped off the out the window at this hotel or something like that. You know what I mean? Just random things like that. Because it was a wild time back then. Because it was just a lot different than now. So it was a humbling experience to have him working on a project with me.
I came up with the idea of the SHAUN White Album probably. I wanted to do it the year or 2 years before it was even released, and the reason for that is Shaun White came on the Tony Hawk skate park tours, and you could just see him in like a 2-week period of his progression was just so much higher, and his snowboarding was starting to pick up, and like this is the year, like things are gonna happen for this kid, and it would be great to document it. And I've known Shaun since he was probably like 8 years old, since he was a little kid, and I just watched him grow up and develop, and you know, it was just like his progression curve was way bigger than anybody else's. So that year, like we were gonna do it, and then there was like, he wasn't sure, and then his brother wasn't sure, and then Renee from Burton was like, no, Shaun's not ready for it, and Shaun like won all these contests all year round, and Renee and I just butted heads, and I was so frustrated, but it gave us time to set up for the next one, and so it gave us more prep work, and you know, then everybody was completely in, and Renee and I are now friends again, so it's nice. Oh yeah, we used to like totally get into verbal feuds all the time on the phone. But it's funny now, we joke around about it. But Shaun was 17 at the time, and it just, I don't know, that was a really tough film because that one, he blew his knee out twice. And we thought for sure, you know, like that was another one, like, okay. And we're so far into this, you know, and I'd committed everything to doing this, but we just had to wait and see how his knee went, and we went down, and we all sat down with our negotiator, Mr. Richard Wolcott, and he said, okay, this is the deal, like in 2 months, like we shouldn't throw the towel in yet, you should try, and you know, make the call in a month and a half from now. And we just waited it out, and he just snapped right back in, and we ended up, we went to New Zealand for, you know, like a month, and it worked out fine. Yeah, so it was John Gottgart, Sean Aaron was on that New Zealand trip, and myself, so it was pretty much the three of us shooting. But mostly G and I, and a lot of G traveling, so.
It was fun. It was really nice to be able to work with somebody that had their own vision. Because he knew how the movie was going to play out way before I did, and way before, you know, anyone else that was working on it with us really thought. So it was cool to see him kind of go, okay, well, we really need this shot, or you know what, this doesn't even matter, because it was really heavy point in my life because I had my first actual injury. I felt I had to get surgery on my knee, and we were going through all this drama, and he just turned it into such a cool thing for the movie. So I was surprised. Normally it's like, oh, movie's over, can't do anything, but he's like, no, we can work it, we can figure it out. So
I mean, his movies he's done are usually pretty unique, and he's done the HAAKON one and White's album. So I think he's the one for unique projects. I never see him going in the business of making a movie every year. It's just something to really, if it's right recipe for him, he dives into that project.
As far as future films, if there's something that comes along that that I'm completely inspired, that I can see the beginning, middle, and an end to do on a whether it's an athlete or a film, then I'd like to do something. But I don't really. There's enough really good filmmakers, and there's really a shortage of athletes to go out and just like turn a film out. And but if something unique really comes about, I definitely want to do it. And I think that's the biggest thing. And everything is like, unless you're passionate about it, it's just going to be watered down. And I've had projects where like I wasn't really passionate about it. I felt like I just had to make a film because I did one the year before, and I did it, and it was really watered down, and I was just like, it just takes all the fun out of it. But like the White Album, I was completely passionate about it, and it worked out really well. And I'm like really proud of that film. That's like the one film I love showing people like that in the movie with Terrier. So those two films.